This is going to be the longest titanium welding video ever. You ready? What's up, guys? We're the weekend after Thanksgiving and we're working on the race car again. We ordered some more material from Tycon so we can continue our downpipe. I thought about leaving it flush, but I think I'm going to mock these up and just see how it looks. We've got one pack of loose radius that I ordered and 2 packs of tight radius. I'll show you why. The other Saturday it was pretty long going through all this mock-up process, and everything is great on the pipe until it gets to right there. If you can see, it kind of goes in then back out. This kind of is proud right here a little bit. That's where the fit up on that ain't exactly good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this entire section out where my fingers are right here today, and I'm going to redo that because the quality of build this is, we can't have anything like that, and maybe not many people would notice that, especially just walking by the car and seeing everything else. But I notice it, and it's bothered me all week. So I got my fixture set up back here. I ripped it apart initially, but I taped it back up, got it where the pipe is, because this is a great exit point for the pipe. It needs to, you know, be here for good. So we're going to get this section cut out, and we're going to make it really smooth going to there, whatever it takes. So that's what we're going to do today, and maybe we'll get to the point where we're welding some stuff up, because, you know, everybody's talked about how much welding this is going to be. So maybe I'll have enough memory card to do the time lapse of this thing, but I seriously doubt I'll have time to even get half this thing welded today, even if I started right now. So let's get into tearing it apart. Okay, I'm back to using my trick I did the other week, only this time I put even more saran wrap around the pipe and actually had to beat it inside the titanium pipe. You notice it's a lot quieter. You don't hear no popping or anything. It's got some cushion in there now. I'm dry cutting it and actually feeding it at a pretty decent rate, but you can really tell it's not fighting it like it was the other week. So I think that's the trick. One thing I'm going to do, instead of using a solid piece across this distance right here, I'm splitting 2 5/8 is my distance I need here once I put this pie cut up right there. So I'm going to do 1 5/16 on each spot. That'll give me a similar look instead of having all these splits and then having a solid piece here. Even though I'm gonna have this thing polished, I still want it to look like it's keeps flowing down instead of just using whatever's easier. So that's what we're doing now. I'm gonna cut 2 pieces and clean them up and then fit them up. Okay, that worked out really well. You can see my piece of aluminum in there, and then the huge layer of saran wrap on the outside of it. See the separation right there? The blade kind of melts it hard, and you don't have to really squeeze it that hard, and that's a piece of 11 gauge aluminum. And if I can just pop that out of the middle, there you go. And there's our piece of aluminum. But cutting titanium smoothly in a dry saw at slow speed, that is what I have found to work. This is the piece that I've cleaned up already. Looks pretty square. Now I've got to clean up this piece. I'll put them both together and see if it works out. All right, we got it mocked up, and I'll say it looks a million times better. Nice and smooth, no janky looking angles in there. See, it flows around. Got your 2 pieces here, which are just slightly bigger than the fat side of the pie cut. And then it narrows down again and sweeps right out to the edge. Now let it come out a little bit further. You can see the fixture marks right there. We're about a finger width further outside the car, because I might, when I get all this welded up, I might hook that horn on there like that. I just ain't positive yet. It might be something we had to get the whole pipe welded up and get the front back on the car and just eyeball it. But I've got a couple more pie cuts, so we can do almost a 90, but this thing's popping flames out. I ain't sure I want it right against my wheel, tire, or the bumper. So we'll see. Let's get this thing off, get these other pieces tacked up, and then we might start welding. Okay, we got our piece taped up. Got a couple air holes in the end for the argon to push the air out. Got the argon flowing in here. We got a TIG Aesthetics purge plug there wrapped in aluminum foil so it don't burn against the flange, because I plan to weld that the flange pretty good. But we had our test piece here that you seen in the time lapse. We tried a lot of different amperages, travel speeds. You can see it's not, a lot of places it's not purged very good, but you can see we was getting some good penetration on a couple of the settings. But what we ended up with was these last couple passes here, right at my thumb. Yes, I know it's too hot, but anytime you're welding a piece this small, non-stop, for like 30 minutes playing with it, it's gonna get hot. So I wasn't really worried about the outside color, more or less how it was doing on the inside. And you see, this is what our last pass was doing. So we're good to go. We kind of know what we need to do on this before we dive into this $1,000 piece of material here. So my argon, I've got it flowing about 10 right now. Oops, about knocked the camera down. The other regulator, I've got it flowing or the torch gas, I've got it flowing about as high as it will. And we've been letting this thing purge for a little bit. Anytime you got a big pipe like this, you got to let it purge for a while. It's not gonna get the air out in 10 seconds or anything. So just be patient with it. I don't weld titanium a lot. It's a lot more finicky than stainless is as far as back purging and stuff. So right now, I'm just gonna go down the side of it and weld about 1 inch all the way down. And then I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Get everything tied in. Move down the pipe pretty rapidly. That way I stay ahead of the heat. Once I get it good and tacked together, or it is tacked together, but rather weld 1 inch or so on each run. Then I'll let it cool all the way down, and if we have enough time, I'll weld some more. This is probably going to be a 2-part welding video, because I plan to do the time lapse on the whole thing, so it's not going to all happen today. So here we go. All right, that was a lot of welding for not a lot of progress. So on both sides of the pie cuts, we welded about 1 inch or so. This is the bottom side. Some of those places I got a little bit too aggressive, melted through, had to add some filler, which when it cools down, I go back over it, it'll all smooth out. But in through there, pretty good. Flip it over and look at the top side. This is going to be the pretty side. Pretty much both sides got 1 inch or so. That way when it cools, I can weld the rest of the stuff and it won't pop tacks. You might have seen me in the time lapse. There was a couple places in these curves that it tried to pull, and yeah, right there, it tried to pull right there, and it popped that tack, and I had to kind of fight it back into position, but it's good to go now. So I will continue this next weekend, and we'll put it together in a big long video with the time lapse and welding and stuff. So the next video, or the next clip you see, will be the finished welding of this pipe. Okay, we are back. It is Monday morning. I come in super early this morning to try to get a little bit more done on this downpipe. After I left, or after I quit videoing Saturday, I come over here and done several runs in the middle here, which looked pretty good, but I got inside the pipe and apparently I wasn't flowing enough argon. I was flowing about 10 CFH through the pipe, but this is a huge pipe, so I ended up taping it up, all the little seams on the top side. I'm just going to focus on this bottom side for right now. I don't mess with titanium really enough to know how finicky it is, so after talking to some people, I got a dedicated bottle over here for my purge, and I've got it really wasting some argon in there right now. So getting it prepped up and gonna start melting it together and see how it goes. Turned out pretty good. Not the most ideal titanium welding. You can see I've got some discoloration in here where it got a little bit hot. I was alternating between a 20 and a 16 cup. The 16 seemed to keep the gas focused a lot better than the 20 did. Had a dedicated purge bottle. Most of these are penetrated, some of them are really light though. You can see it starting to come through, but it don't come all the way through. But for a downpipe, it's going to do the job. You can see it looks pretty good there. I put filler on just about everything through this section here because this is going to see the most heat in this bend. So I really pump the filler to it. This out through here, I'll probably just fuse it. But I wanted this to be extra strong, so I put the extra material in there. You can see the difference in the fusing versus the filler. You can actually see the dabs in there. O2 sensor, I welded the bung to the pipe. Then I dropped this little support gusset over top of it, welded it, then welded it also to the bung to reinforce it. So everything is welded on that pipe up to this joint. So after, I don't know how many hours, this morning I probably put 4 hours into this section here, which was still doing it too fast because you can see the color and stuff. Most of the welds are gold, but there's some spots where it just colored out there, but not really worried about it. We'll put some more time in tomorrow morning maybe, and maybe continue on throughout the week when we can, after work or before work, and then maybe into Saturday before we finish it. But definitely time consuming. Somebody said like 14 hours to weld that. They're not exaggerating. It's probably going to take longer than that. So we'll continue later. What's up, guys? About 12 hours later and we are done with this downpipe. It turned out pretty sweet. Titanium is not something that I mess with a lot. It really takes some patience. You can see our color is pretty good in here, but you can see by the rainbow spots I didn't give it enough time to post flow after I got out of it. In there it's pretty decent. The welds look decent, but the color, you can see, for example, I would weld this section here and get to right here, and I'd pull it off before it had time to flow out, or else the main thing, I was trying to weld this whole pipe, and I think I have 4 different sessions in this. I'm always pushed for time, so I'm just trying to burn it out, and you really can't rush titanium like that without getting the discoloration in the pipe. But it turned out pretty sweet. I'm happy with it. Can't really see in the pipe there, but we got decent penetration on all the joints. Not as much as you'd see on some Instagram account of some super good titanium welder, but it was good for our first big run of titanium. You might have seen I done some titanium about a year ago on the C7 Radial versus World car. It was actually a lot thicker than this, and it only had a couple joints in the whole pipe, so it was a little bit easier to control the heat on. This here, I was just trying to go down through and weld an inch or so at a time, and then come back and weld an inch or so at a time, trying to keep the pipe cool. I had a separate purge bottle going, flowing the crap out of gas. It was dripping water off the regulator, but definitely a time-consuming experience. But I'm still on the fence. When Joey gets here this morning, we're gonna put the front on. I'm still on the fence about putting this tip on here. We'll just have to see how it looks, and if I do, I'm gonna weld this thing up completely separate off the car, and then I'll connect it to the pipe once it's fully welded up, because it was really hard to get all this completely purged out with argon. I had yellow tape, you might have seen in the time lapse, taping up all the joints, just trying to keep all the gas in there. But when you have a pipe that big, it's kind of hard to saturate it really good, especially if you're impatient like me. Our O2 sensor, we've got a little gusset there. You can get these at Tycon. I welded the O2 sensor bung onto the pipe, then I laid the gusset down over top of it and welded it again around there, so it's double welded around that area, make it super strong. I'm gonna also come on the inside here once I get my pipe positioned exactly after I put the tip on, and do a little flat bar area there across a couple of them weld joints, and do a tab that connects it to the frame rail right there. That way it will support it from rotating, because if I put a turn up on this thing and I start hitting it off the 2-step, it's going to want to try to rotate that pipe just the way it's coming off the turbo. So if you're going to do some titanium, make sure you have a couple bottles of argon and more patience than I have. So next time I do it, I'll know a little bit more. But this being my own car, this was my trial run of doing this many pie cuts. I think there's 37. So definitely a lot of welding, and by the time we got to the end, we was getting our penetration good and stuff like that. So now we know. All right, guys, we're back here on a Saturday. We're going to try to finish this downpipe up. This thing has taken forever. So we decided to put a tip on it, and this is the tip it's going to have. I'll take it over here and show you what it's going to look like. If I can remember to put the image in the video of what it looked like mocked up with the front on, I will. But the last video about this downpipe, I forgot to do that. So it's going to look like that. Slightly turned back. I didn't want it, straight up, because it just didn't look right with the bumper. So we're going to have it slightly angled back like that. Gives it a nice look from the front. So we're going to try to do a little bit better welding this up as far as our color, penetration, all that stuff, since it's a smaller piece. We're going to basically take our time this morning doing that, Also, we're gonna come right here and weld a flat piece across here right under the frame where you really can't see it, and do a tab up to the frame rail there. So it will support this from rotating. Because in the past, when the exhaust is out from the turbo like this and it doesn't go through a bumper or something, especially if it has any kick up to it, when it gets hot, it'll try to push it to the ground whenever you really start throwing the exhaust out of it. Or if you come down from a wheelie or something like that, it would get out of position. So that's what we're going to do there. And let's see what it looks like with the bumper on the car right quick. I'm going to throw the image right here, if I remember to do it in the video editing. We've got some titanium flat bar over there we're going to use for our tab to hold it up. Right now I want to get this thing taped up and get the gas flowing in it, and we're going to start running some welds on it. So here we go. Okay, we've got everything all the way around this tip, all but the inside seam where the purge plug is. I'm going to take the purge plug and switch it to this side. That way we can get this side. But you can see on the inside we have 100% penetration the whole way around. Really happy with how that turned out. It only took us about the whole downpipe to figure out the travel speed and all that stuff, which 37 pie cuts in the downpipe, I just didn't have the patience, I'll admit, to slow down. But today, since I'm just working on this tip, we have really great penetration. It's even silver right there, has no color at all. Get the camera in there. So that is what you want ideally on the entire piece that you're working on. So maybe as we work with more titanium, we'll continue this trend now that I've pretty well got it locked in. I'll show you the welder. I've got it on 48 amps. I'm not using pulse or anything. Just more or less going really, really slow. And that's the key I've found to the penetration, is just not to travel too fast. So we're going to switch this purge plug to the other side, and then we're going to do this piece here to the front side, and we're going to get this outside seam, and then we're going to get it on our downpipe. Or rather, we'll probably just make the brace over there first, and then that way we can bring everything over here on the bench and weld it up. Alright, we're all finished up here. Definitely got the hang of it. I wish we had done this good on the entire downpipe, but really took our time on this tip. Well, I'll say that. I was still kind of rushed on the outside. Wasn't really letting the gas do what it needed to do. I think the main reason, you can't get these parts too hot. And when they get warm, it don't matter what kind of gas flow you got, it still tries to oxidize. You can see my start stops there. Right in there is pretty good in the middle. But let's check out the inside. Full penetration on every joint. I'm really happy with that. Even that last one was silver all the way around. No color. A few places in there it got, and right there it melted the aluminum full. I tried to sand it off a little bit, but it makes it kind of crusty right there. But that's the key, is just going slow. I'm a really fast welder. We do a lot of production stuff, and I crank the amperage way up on the chromoly and let it eat. But titanium, you just cannot do that. And because I don't mess with it a lot, it was a hard learning curve for me, even something so simple as just going slow. You can see up in there, penetrated with no color. That's ideal. I'm just excited it looks that good all the way around. especially since you're going to be able to see this entire inside this tip. So back to what we're doing here. See the weld seam right there on the pie cuts? I always put that to the back where you're not going to see it. What we're going to do now is fit that up, get it tacked in place on the bench, that is. We're going to go ahead and transfer our marks because they just about burn off. Then we're going to work on our mount here before we take the downpipe off. So let's get to it. Fast forward about 25 minutes and we have made ourselves a little tab here. This is a titanium tab. This is flat bar that I had left over from another job we used for a very similar purpose on a downpipe. So I've got it marked. This is where the frame rail goes down right here. So this will be tucked up under the frame rail. So when you're looking at the front of the car, you're not going to see this like an eyesore. So let's drop it on the table. We made a mark on it to line it up, and that's where it's going to go. So that's going to catch 2 pie cuts, cross 1 weld, make it strong. And we've also darkened up our marks right here for our pipe. It's going to line up just like that. So we're going to get this on the table and get this welded up, and then the last thing we'll do will be put the tab on the frame rail, and this never-ending downpipe project will be complete. Alright, we've got everything welded up and back on the car.
Joey come up here for a second and he helped me put the front on. I was just going to show y'all what it looked like with the front on before we take it back off and finish welding the tab to the chassis. Out far enough to throw some fire, I believe. That's it. We're going to put our tab on and we'll be done. Here marks the ending of the longest downpipe fabrication video on YouTube. We've got everything in place. We've got our support tab welded underneath the frame rail. So looking from the front, you never see it. And that will keep it from rotating. I've not got it tight right now, it's still jiggling around. I'm really happy on how the downpipe turned out. We got it looking and flowing like we want to. It looks like we want to outside of the car. And welding that much titanium, I learned a little bit on how to work with it. See, we did way better on our tip right here, but we still need to work on our heat control. Like I've said a few times in this video already, there's a company in town one of our friends works at that does passivation. We're going to take a test piece there and see if we can make all these welds have no heat and oxidation on them anymore. I don't think I'm going to get it polished. Sorry, Joe. I'm probably going to just leave that naturally the way it is, just because I like the look. I know he's going to say I need to polish it. Get a flashlight over here from the toolbox and show you the inside of this thing while it's on the car. If any of y'all skipped over that part of the video, wipe it out. It's got crap all in it. See, we got really good penetration. Don't pay attention to that little white spot up there. That's where we join the tip to the end, and the gas flow is a little bit light, but really happy with the way the tip turned out. Good to know we've got the titanium figured out now. When I do it on the customer's car, it'll look like that for the whole thing. I always like to experiment on my own stuff before I jump into a customer's car. Makes me feel more confident going into it. So there it is. Hope you've enjoyed the process, the learning process that I've went through with this titanium stuff, and how it's just like everything, it's a process. Don't get frustrated, keep trying new stuff. Retain all the knowledge that you figure out. That's what makes you better. Thanks, guys. See ya. Finally, the video is over.